Okay, today I'm going to teach you how to write equations in the point-slope form. Now, this form is really nice because if you learn this today, you can actually always graph linear equations if you knew 2 points in a line. Now, the previous lesson that I did with you all, if you remember, I did if you knew the slope and the y-intercept. So you had to know the slope and had to know the y-intercept. All right? So if I told you that the slope of the line was 7 and 0.70 was on the line, and I asked you to graph that, this is what a lot of you would probably be doing right now. You could try it yourself. You can pause the video real quick and try this yourself. But if I told you 7 is a slope and 70 is on the line, what would you do in that equation? Well, most of you would probably do this. Well, the slope is 7, so it's 7x, and the y-intercept is 7, so it's plus 7. And that is absolutely wrong. Because remember, why is this wrong? Because the slope was 7 and the y-intercept has to be 0 comma b. And that is not the y-intercept. That's just a point on the line. It happens to be the x-intercept, but it's not the y-intercept. So you can't just put that number in there because this had to be 0.7 to go in there, and it wasn't. So now you're stuck because now you have a point and a slope, but you don't have the point that you need. You want the y-intercept and you don't have it. Now there are some ways to figure out what the y-intercept is given that, but when you're faced with this predicament, what you can do is this. You can learn the point-slope formula, which says this: y minus y1 is equal to m times x minus x1. Now let me spend a few minutes here explaining this formula to you. If we look at the slope formula real quick, and remember what it was, y1 minus y2 over x1 minus x2, right? Let's say I just randomly multiplied both sides by x1 minus x2. Okay? What would I end up with? Well, I'd have m times x1 minus x2 is equal to y1 minus y2. And if you look at this equation right here, if you look at this, and then you look at this, you realize you're basically looking at the same thing. You know, that's x2, but you can transpose those. You can flip those around. That could be x2, x1. But you're basically looking at this. This formula is not a new formula. It's just writing the slope formula in a different form. Okay? But this is going to work because it is actually the slope formula. You could actually use the slope formula to do this, but this just makes it a little bit easier. You do want to memorize this formula. Okay? So here's the steps. Find the slope. Then put the point and the slope into the point-slope formula, and then rewrite it in y equals mx plus b and graph it. Okay? So let's try a couple of those. All right. First things first, let's write the point-slope formula. Y minus y1 is equal to m times x minus x1. Now watch what you do. This is my slope. This is x1. This is y1. Okay? Now be careful with these minuses. That's where people mess up, and they also put the x here and the y here. So just go real slow with this. That's why I would label everything. And just fill in the blanks. Y minus 4 is equal to, the slope is negative 2 times x minus a negative 1, which becomes plus 1. See what I did there? Just plugged in the pieces. All right, I'm going to distribute the negative 2, so I'll end up with negative 2x. Negative 2 times 1 is negative 2 equals y minus 4. Add 4 to both sides. I get y equals negative 2x. Negative 2 plus 4 is plus 2. So there we have it. There's the equation of the line. This is really nice because this will always work from now on. As long as you have a slope and a point, or 2 points, which we're going to do in a few minutes, you can write the equation of the line. Do not fall for this. Some people will take that slope and that point and they'll do this. Y equals, well, the slope is negative 2x and the point is 4, so it's plus 4. And that is wrong because that number has to be the y-intercept. If this was a 0, that would be right, but it's not in this case. So you don't want to do that. Okay? All right. So can we graph this? Well, absolutely. We start at 2, and by now you should be pretty good at this. Start at 2. The slope is negative 2, which means down 2, right 1. So I'm going to go down 4, right 2. Down 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, right 2. So there's my graph, and I'm just going to make a quick little sketch of this graph. All right, so it looks something like that. There you have it. Okay, let's do another example. All right, first things first, write the equation. Y minus y1 is equal to m times x minus x1. And remember, this is not a new formula. This is just a slope formula written a little bit differently. Okay, so label everything. This is x1, y1. And be careful when you write it. Y minus a negative 3, which becomes plus 3, equals, the slope is negative 1/2, x minus x is 10, x1 is 10, so it's minus 10. So distribute the negative 1/2, and I get negative 1/2 x, negative half of the negative 10 is positive 5. And then add a negative 3 to both sides. And I'm left with y equals negative 1/2 x plus 2. That's it. Put the numbers in, put the slope in, turn it into y equals mx plus b, and you can quickly graph this. Y-intercept is 2. Go down 1, right 2, down 1, right 2, down 1, right 2, about right there. Up 1, left 2, up 1, left 2, about right there. And graph that line. Yeah, so it looks something like that. Pretty easy. All right, example 3. Now this one's a little bit harder, but this is actually when this formula really becomes useful. Because now all I have is 2 points. I don't have a slope and I don't have a y-intercept. So what am I going to have to do? Well, remember, to use this formula, y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1, I need a point and I need a slope. All right? Well, I don't have a slope, so I need to come up with some way to find the slope. Well, I have a slope formula, don't I? Slope formula is y1 minus y2 over x1 minus x2. So I just plug in my points there. So I'm going to call this x1, y1, and this will be my x2, y2. Okay? So this is going to be 3 minus 1 over negative 1 minus 1. Well, 3 minus 1 is 2, and negative 1 minus 1 is negative 2. So 2 divided by a negative 2 is negative 1. So my slope is negative 1. Great. So what am I going to do now? Well, my slope is negative 1, so I'm going to plug in the numbers. Now here's something interesting. I have 2 points here, right? Which point do I use? Well, the answer is I can use either point, and I'm actually going to do this problem with both points so you can see that it works either way. So I'm going to do it the first way. Y minus, I'm going to use this point, right? So y minus what? 3 is equal to negative 1 times x. Minusing a negative 1 is plus 1, right? Negative 1 times x, you're going to distribute there, so that's negative 1x. Negative 1 times 1 is minus 1. Add 3 to both sides. Right? You're left with y equals negative 1x. Negative 1 plus 3 is plus 2. So there's my equation of my line. Now let's do it the other way. What if I had used this point instead? Now stay with me here for a minute. They both have a slope of negative 1 with each other, right? So they both have this slope of negative 1, and I use this point right here for my x1, y1. But what would happen if I use this point instead? Well, I would do the same thing. I would say y minus what? 1 is equal to negative 1 times x minus 1. So I end up with negative 1x plus 1, because I distributed negative 1. Add 1 to both sides, and I finally get negative 1x plus 2, which is the exact same formula. Okay, so let's graph that. I want you to understand you can use either point. I would probably have used this 1, 1 because they were smaller numbers, but you could use either point. It doesn't make a difference. So let's go ahead and do this now. Where's my starting point? My starting point is 2, so go to 2. Go down 1, right 1, down 1, right 1, down 1, right 1, down 1, right 1, down 1, right 1. You could go down as many as you want. I'm going to go down 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's my line, right? Go ahead and graph that. And it looks something very similar to that. Okay? Example 4. So remember, the first thing I need to do is find the slope because I don't have a slope here. So the slope is going to be, I'll keep writing it because it's so important, y1 minus y2 over x1 minus x2. Okay? y1 is, let's call this x1, y1, and x2, y2. So we get 2 minus 5 over 3 minus 4. 2 minus 5 is negative 3, and 3 minus 4 is negative 1, and negative divided by negative is positive, so it's positive 3. Then we put that into the point slope formula. Y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. I'm going to use this point in this case, but you could use either point. In fact, in your notes, you could actually do the other one and see if you get my answer. Y minus 2 is equal to 3 times x minus 3. Y minus 2 is equal to 3x minus 9. Distribute the 3. Add 2 to both sides. And I'm done. Y equals 3x minus 7. Quickly sketch that. Go down to negative 7. Go up 3, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3 over 1. 1, 2, 3 over 1. And that's probably enough to graph it. It looks something like this, right? Okay, looks something like that. Extend your line all the way through. And the last example. Just like in the previous lesson, you have to understand what this means. This means I'm putting a 3 in for an x. This is a function, right? I'm putting a 3 in for an x, and I'm getting a negative 1 for y. So that's actually just a point. 3, negative 1. I'm putting a negative 3 in. I'm getting a negative 5 out. So that's negative 3, negative 5. All right? Okay, first thing first, calculate the slope. In this case, it's going to be y1 minus y2 over x1 minus x2. Plug in what I know. Y1 is negative 1 minus 5. Negative 5 is plus 5 over 3 minus a negative 3, which is plus 3. 1 minus 5, negative 1 plus 5 is 4, and 3 plus 3 is 6. And 4/6 is actually 2/3. Okay, put that into my point slope formula. Y minus y1 is equal to m times x minus x1. We get y minus a negative 1, which is plus 1, because I'm going to use this point right here. Plus 1 is equal to the slope is 2/3 of x minus 3. 2/3 of x. 2/3 of negative 3 is negative 2. Subtract 1 from both sides, or add a negative 1 to both sides, and I get y equals 2/3 x Negative 2 plus a negative 1 is a negative 3. And there's my equation. Quickly graph it. Start at negative 3. Go up to right 4. Up to 1, 2, 3, 4. There's the equation of my line. I'm going to graph that. Looks something like this. And there you have it. Point slope formula. This is probably, if there's anyone that you want to memorize, it's this one because you can use this one every single time. Okay? Good luck with it.